Civitas placed around 35% of UK universities in the category called most restrictive on free speech. Unsurprisingly, among this category were Cambridge, Oxford, St Andrews, Liverpool, Sheffield, and a number of really other top UK universities that are on this, so-called red list, which is the most restrictive on free speech. And we've seen that trend obviously develop in the United States. It's been highlighted more. We saw with Brett Weinstein in Evergreen. We saw that with the riots that happened when Milo Yiannopoulos came to speak at Berkeley, and now straight Milo Yiannopoulos. We saw that with a bunch of speakers. This has happened with Rutgers and Audrey Trushke and Lisa Daftari. That whole situation we saw as well. So this is something that's been a bit of a trend, this clamping down on free speech and these, horrific double standards that all of these universities have, where they talk about how they're complete supporters of free speech, but not really. And we have reached a point where somebody like Rashmi Samant, who was hounded out of her position that she earned, by the way, through her merit and through her hard work. She was elected as the president of the Students' Union of Oxford, completely earned, but she was hounded out of it. She was forced to abdicate her position, something that she had worked so hard for, because she had said some apparently insensitive stuff when she was, 17, 18, 19 years old. So her free speech apparently was not allowed. But then at the same time, you have this fellow who is a faculty member at Oxford, who has a bit of a track record of ad hominem attacks on Hindus. And not just that, creepy behavior like stalking a woman half her age, stalking her family, stalking her social media, digging out her old tweets, and, having extremely uncouth behavior towards women and points of view that he disagrees with. But for Oxford, his free speech is sacrosanct. His free speech is important because, as far as I'm aware, yet maybe things have changed. Maybe someone can enlighten me. But as far as I'm aware, Oxford hasn't really taken any action on him. As far as Rashmi is aware, he's roaming free on the campus. There's been no action really taken on him. And I get the feeling that if this guy was like not a self-hating Hindu, or if he was a Republican on an American campus, his ass would be grass, like they say. His ass would be out of Oxford. And so, Kushal, it really makes me think, what is it going to take for a university like Oxford that does not want toxic ideas on its campus, as they have routinely stated? What is it going to take action against such a toxic individual?
I don't know anybody who's part of academia who will do anything like this. It's just not. It's not part of the raison d'etre of a university. This is not how universities do academic research, by obsessing about women and their genitalia. What this gentleman is doing. I mean, you can see it's all over. It's just absurd what this man is. I think he's a frustrated human being, and they must have not seen his Twitter handle. Now, I don't know how they're going to wiggle out of this. I think Oxford is in a big soup. They can't wiggle out of this. I think they might have to let go of this dum-dum.
Yeah, because, the language...
It's not just him, Sham. It is Audrey too. Yeah. Now, Audrey is on record calling Bhagwan Sri Ram a pig. She's on record saying the Bhagavad Gita is a manual for rationalizing mass murder. Yeah. The Mahabharata is a manual of misogyny. She has said these things on the record. And then obviously she says that Aurangzeb was a benevolent ruler in comparison to everything else that was there around him. So the point is that Audrey has still survived. Now the point is that you brought about this survey. So I forgot the name of the organization. See, these surveys are done in United States of America and Canada too. I forgot. I think Professor Gad Saad, I think a couple of years ago, had interviewed the company that had done that survey. And they had shown how free speech is a problem. Interestingly, Sham, the entire problem of free speech, if you even narrow it down department-wise, is always in departments where the left is dominating. It is not an issue in the business courses departments like economics and in all those areas where
that's what Rashmi said on my podcast. Rashmi said that this is not an issue in the sciences department, that this has never come up while she was working with the science department. It came up in the social sciences department.
Yes, and this is what happens when you have the death of diversity of thought. See, when intellectual diversity dies, what happens is human beings are naturally inclined to avoid cognitive dissonance. So people forget at times that these professors are also human beings and they're not used to cognitive dissonance. And what is happening right now is they're so used to living in a cocooned environment that any cognitive dissonance, even for the professor, is considered to be an assault on their integrity.
Yeah.
This is the problem. Now, I think universities have to kind of force fit this policy where they make sure that no one particular ideology, and that actually goes to the economics departments also, that they might have to forcibly put some socialists in the department so that we don't have this sort of a problem somewhere in the future. This is an epistemic problem. This is not anything else.
Yeah. Abhijit, anything to offer to that?
Not really. The thing we need to understand is this isn't based on any rules. Today, Little Willie, whose Willie is like his name, Little Willie, Dalrymple, of course, White Willie.
Oh my God. I was like, who's he talking about?
Little White Willie.
I see.
So, Little White Willie has taken a tweet today saying, there was this guy who wanted to emulate what BLM was doing and destroy all colonial monuments like Humayun's tomb and etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
And he said, see, I said this was what is going to happen. These Hindu nationalists are parading onto, they want to genocide people, piggybacking on BLM.
Yeah.
So if BLM wants to wipe out history, it's justified. But if we want to wipe out the monuments of the people who murdered us, massacred us, oppressed us, colonized us, raped us, it is bad. Now notice, it's only Little White Willie who seems to be confused on this.
Yeah.
I oppose BLM and I oppose tearing down Humayun's tomb and everything like that. And that's a very rational stance, right? Because history is history. You can't hold the past try to fix every historical wrong today by breaking down monuments and crap like that, because they're part of your shared heritage.
Yeah.
Right. This is number one. Number two is this fact that the same kind of double standards applies to Hindus and white heterosexual males, increasingly also white gay males. Because
and now Asians as well.
And now Asians as well. Because, white gay males, the very fact that they like men and don't like, transsexuals makes them bigots.
Yeah.
If you're white, you're automatically a bigot. You can say, there are so many things that Cookie Nutjob, Priyambada Gopal said persecuted. Remember?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yep.
Hindus should be persecuted. You can say, let's kill white people.
He said, especially Brahmins need to be persecuted and gotten rid of. Yeah.
So you can say all of this about some people.
Yeah.
You just can't say this about all other people who they decide is legit now or not legit now.
Yeah.
Before, it wasn't okay to say it about gay people, but today it's apparently okay to even say it about gay people because they're toxically masculine, apparently. The thing is, this isn't a new idea. It's actually a regression back to, Rousseau and Voltaire. I forget which of those two said, came up with this idea of the noble savage. Before white people went everywhere, the world was a great peaceful place. There was only brotherhood and bhaichara and Rousseau. There was kissing and loving and all of that, and there was no war. Yeah. I don't think idiots ever went to, pre-Columbian America where, there was human sacrifices and war and war is...
just don't know it yet.
Yeah, I'm white. I agree I'm white.
He openly accepts that he is white.
If you look at the color palette, see on top of Sham is brown.
Kushal is
black. I am white. I'm white. And I just wanted to finish off by saying, this Abhijit Sarkar, he's clearly a
yeah. And you can see here in a Washington school district, basically Asian students are now lumped in together with white students. They're not even students of color anymore.
Yeah. Can you, but getting back to serious stuff, remember, there's a concept of increasing whiteness. So if you look at it, initially when the Italians came to America,
Yeah.
they weren't considered white.
Yes. Yeah.
Initially the Jews weren't considered white.
Irish weren't considered white.
The Irish weren't considered white, even though the Irish are as white as you can get.
As you
They have some of the highest, after Scandinavian countries, they have the highest instances of, well, not blonde hair, but red hair and extremely white skin. They weren't considered white, and then they were co-opted into white, technically.
Yeah.
The Italians were co-opted last because it was also, in addition to not being white of white, they were also Catholic, which was a problem, right? So the problem is, a lot of this you can actually make into a real argument. The problem here is they never make the real argument. It's like that spoiled brat who never takes responsibility for their actions.
Yeah.
It's always somebody else's fault. It's never their fault. So it's a combining of, prolonged puberty along with a regression to old ideas, a phase of puberty where you don't take responsibility for your actions and where your social studies, instead of going forward, has actually gone back 300 years.